Hello, and welcome to the special CUBE conversation. I'm John Furrier, your host of the CUBE here in our CUBE studios. We got a great news release here, got a great conversation around data, the future of generative AI in the enterprise. Anjan Kundavaram, who's the Chief Product Officer at Fivetran. Anjan, thanks for coming on the CUBE. Good to see you.
John, thanks for having me and nice to chat with you again.
You know, you guys, we had a great conversation with the team at Databricks' AI Summit. You guys have been in the news. You know, the whole agentic story starting to emerge. We saw our companies talk about that. Salesforce is promoting the hell out of it. You're seeing the
Yeah,
applications starting to rise up, and you're starting to see large scale applications that couldn't be solved before generative AI on one hand, and then the role of agents, all fueled by data. And this is the big focus right now in the industry. But a lot of work's getting done on the infrastructure side. We're seeing advances on the chips. We're seeing the infrastructure, the cloud players, and the on-premise activity. So great job there. The data layer is starting to emerge. So data is really the key enabler to these systems that are going to soon really arrive on the scene super fast when you start to see these new kinds of intelligent applications. You guys are in the middle of all this. You got some big news. Set the table for us. Give some context
yeah,
to what you guys are doing, because you're on the cutting edge now with data movement, data intelligence. And now this is shifting significantly as people start to build the foundations for the future of their generative AI infrastructure.
yeah. Thanks, John, for the setup. Like you're absolutely right. Right. We are talking about like a new age with Gen AI, but you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like data is at the center of it. Like you're not really going to get much out of your analytics or AI applications if your data is not centralized in one place. Like John, as you know, our mission is to be the data movement platform for the world and to make data movement as simple and reliable as electricity, right? And the way we think about that is like pervasive source and destination. So like connecting all your sources to any destination that you care about and doing that in a very reliable way, like with the right throughput and the right latency. If you think about like power, like you don't really think about like how do you operate it. It's just always works. And that's our metaphor to how we kind of built Fivetran, how like everybody wakes up thinking about making data movement our mission and making it super reliable. And we think that's kind of the central piece to getting your analytics or Gen AI story right. But we think there's like a missing piece. The missing piece is customers still struggle with sensitive data, whether it's patient data, financial data, and so on. And they like, what do you do with that? Like, they don't bring that data to the analytics, or they struggle with it. So we're launching, super excited to talk about the new capabilities. So we're launching hybrid deployment. So you get the benefits of SaaS, the simplicity. Like I can go just do this in a couple of hours, but in your premise, in your VPC, wherever you want it. So the benefits of SaaS, helping customers kind of hit this last frontier, if you will, moving sensitive data with the security guarantees of what you need. And I think this has been super exciting. We're going to be GA on this, and we've been working with lots of customers. We've got over 7,000 customers, and customers have been asking for this. They're tired of doing this themselves. So I'm very excited about our hybrid launch here.
Well, let's get into the news. I mean, obviously, everyone's watching what's happening on the mainstream, media outlets covering the leveraging generative AI, being ready for it. If you look at the earnings, whether it's NVIDIA or any kind of chip infrastructure players, there's a shift from on-prem to the cloud and cloud to on-prem. And if you look at the numbers, the data center numbers are up on the chip side. So there's a lot of activity going on. So, being ready is not just a cloud thing. It's also, to you point out, regulation, compliance, data sensitivity, intellectual property, working with the cloud. So this hybrid model is there. Cloud ops is kind of going that direction, but customers want control. They want one platform. Let's go into the news. What are you guys announcing? What's the announcement? And let's unpack it.
Yeah, let's unpack it, right? So what you find, John, is when you go to customers, they have sensitive data, whether it's PI data, PHI data, healthcare data, and so on. And you kind of talked about like in on-prem, and they do two things. Either they're building custom data pipelines, like, and they go invest in an engineering team to move that data, or they just don't do it. And the second thing is pretty painful. You don't move your data, and like before, you would just not get analytics. Now, as you point out, Gen AI, the price is much more significant. You don't move the data, it's going to cost. And then with analytics, you could kind of get by with AI. You get a new set of use cases where getting all of that information together is paramount. Like you could go really look at signals that you couldn't get before without Gen AI. So what we're launching is a hybrid design where our control plane is where you could do configuration, you could get metadata about your data pipelines, but the data pipeline itself runs wherever you want it. Like, so the data movement. So we will never look at customer data, and that's been the premise all along. But the data plane, which is moving data, runs on your premises in your VPC, and all of that is managed in our control plane. So you could pick and choose, like, hey, for some sources, I could just use SaaS. But there's some data sources I really care about the security on this. Like that could be a financial data, it could be some sensitive data. You're going to manage that in your premises. But here's the bit: before, you're getting a large team of engineers potentially managing this for you. And what we usually find is, who are you going to trust with managing these data pipelines? Like, we wake up every day and we've got about 500 engineers thinking and optimizing how to move data pipelines. In some sense, it's more risky for customers to do this on their own. It's better, it's better to partner with a vendor like us who's thinking and partnering with you. So you now can host your data plane on your premise, and you now have the support of our entire engineering team and our support team to help you. And here's the best part: we will manage the updates to the data plane. You get kind of the benefits of SaaS, but the data is always in your sort of threat, in your security zone. So we're never in your threat vector. So your regulators are happy, your security team is happy, but you get the benefits of SaaS. What I usually find with customers is, and you pointed this out, you have your CEO and investors talking about move faster, 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 and more analytics, and get the Gen AI app into production. But you can't really get the Gen AI app into production without getting all your data and sensitive data. And then on one hand, you have pressure from regulators and your security team. So, like, if you're an IT person or you're an IT leader, you're struggling with this problem. Yeah. So the solution is our hybrid deployment. You're like, I could go finally get that Gen AI. I don't need to waste my resources on building a data pipeline myself. I'm going to let somebody like Fivetran come and manage it. And I'm going to go figure out how to go build that RAG application, or I'm going to go figure out how to build some compelling business application. And we can go into cost. Like there's like a huge cost driver here as well.
I mean, what's interesting, what I like about your solution is that there's a trend towards developers just being agnostic to what the data is doing. So it's a kind of a data engineering assignment on-prem now, right? So you have, this sensitive data, but it's all stovepiped. So I have to ask you the problem. I mean, it sounds like you guys have a centralized ability to manage that sensitive data, as well as with the control plane, flex into the cloud, right? So it seems like it's a cloud ops play. I guess the question for you is, what's the core problem you guys are solving with this solution? What was the motivation? What was the driver? Was it do it yourself? Was it the fact that there was all these siloed solutions? Everyone had to have custom code for each thing. What was the driver for the solution? What was the core problem?
And as we listen to our customers, right? We're a very customer obsessed company. You had customers saying, look, for these for the sensitive data, they go and build these custom pipelines, and it never works. You're sort of like thinking about it's less secure than they think. It never works. You have to manage it. The return on investment is poor. So you get two pivots. Either the data never ends up in analytics, and sort of your business stakeholders are not happy, or it's less reliable, or the worst, it's less secure. So like these are the three patterns that we kept hearing from customers. In fact, Powell Industries, one of our early adopters, and has been super happy. What I heard from them is they built a custom pipeline, and it's on-prem, and so they kind of make updates. They have to monitor it, and then they're like nervous about kind of doing that pattern for many. So now we've got a simple control plane. They could go and install a local agent, and they could do this themselves. And it's like in a few minutes, the local agent's deployed. and they could go connect to, let's say, a Postgres. They could connect to an application, and that all of that data processing happens locally. And they can go into the control plane, schedule, hey, how often do you want to replicate this information? And you're done. Like you're in a matter of a couple of hours, you could deploy the whole thing, you could get this running, and you don't have to ever worry about it. Well, like if there's an update, we'll do it. We understand the sources very deeply. So we know when things are changing on the source side, we'll keep up with all the sources. You can monitor this in the control plane. So you get control back, you get the management benefits, and you get the cost benefits. So let me hit on the cost side. We did a study by IDC and some and our media customers. They are saving 1.5 million, and some are investing up to $100,000 per source. That's a lot of money. And at the same time, like think about and some teams that's up to 15 DevOps engineers or data engineers. What could they be doing for your business to make your business go faster? And whether that's creating a Gen AI app or better analytics or just helping your business go faster. So there's a cost argument, but I actually think the opportunity cost is much, much important. Either the opportunity cost of the data that really runs your business, and there's a strong correlation between sensitive data and the data that really runs your business, that not ending up in analytics or Gen AI, or your sort of key resources that you really need them to innovate to help you run business faster, they're kind of building data applications, right? So the analogy I almost like to think about it's like a few years ago, you were kind of building infrastructure, and like you don't need to do that anymore. You just go on AWS or cloud and do it. And same thing for databases, like you're building databases and now you can just spin up RDS in a couple of minutes. We think of this data pipelines as the same thing, as don't build data pipelines to move data, just use this hybrid deployment to get there.
Anjan, I got to ask you, I want to get into the deployment, how you guys deploy, because that's a key thing, ease of deployment, saving that time.
Yeah.
You mentioned costs. Is the cost coming from traditional on-premise data management platforms, or is it coming from the engineering resources? I mean, if you ask the question, you can free up DevOps people. I mean, that's yes, yes all day long, because there are a lot of things that they can work on. Where's the cost? Is it the engineering time? Is it this setup time, or just dealing with the maintenance of pre-existing old school data management solutions?
Yeah, I think the cost principally comes from a team of people having to figure out how to build a data pipeline from, say, a Postgres or a SQL Server, and continually have to manage it and maintain it, right? If you kind of build a custom pipeline because you have sensitive data, it looks easy at first, but like building the first one that kind of does okay is like, and as you try to build a data pipeline, you have to maintain it, you have to make it reliable, you have to get the right throughput and the right latency. And when you have to do all of that, it's very expensive. And then like, as you keep doing it, customers realize this. And so in our case, like we've got the entire company waking up every day and over 500 engineers deeply thinking about the problem. And what we find is like just moving data is okay, you can get by, but like moving data in a way that's accurate, moving data in a way that's super reliable, getting that 99.9, like getting that like the few more tenths of is very, very hard. And now you got to do that across a breadth of sources, and sources are always changing. So this is kind of where the complexity starts to come in, and these things change. So you now have to build it, and you have to constantly manage it. So it's like now a team of 5 people started it, and then like the team explodes. Yeah. So now you have a very large team that's managing data pipelines. I can't really do anything. So now you could say, hey, let's get somebody like Fivetran to come and help you do that. And you could go you could have the team just monitoring the pipelines, and you can go do something else, right? So it's intellectual capital. It's like that's often like, hey, you sometimes have the best people working on this problem in your company. Shouldn't they be working something else? So the cost is, so DevOps, data ops. But I often find the opportunity when I talk to thought leaders and CDOs, they tell me like it's just the opportunity cost. Like you have your best people working on data pipelines and moving data, and they should really be innovating on the front end of business applications and Gen AI applications.
You know, I think one of the opportunity costs too is then the successful AI companies that are leveraging it it's really the application top line revenue opportunities, because if
Yeah,
you don't have the right data in there, everyone's bringing in multiple data sources on-prem and in the cloud. And you got the coders who are going to write once in the language they know and not have to recode things. So I think there's a huge opportunity cost on the app side of not having the data available. So, I'll see a huge part on the enablement side. That's big. So that's really another driver as well. It's the pressure not only to reduce cost and make the productivity work, which clearly that's there. It's the disruptive enablement to the application space, because
yeah.
now you're connected. Now you have multiple sources connected easily. And so take us through that deployment, because the question I have, to challenge you is to say, okay, sounds great. You had me at hello there with saving DevOps time. I buy that
Mhm.
the future proof of having my apps drive revenue and new capabilities for users and experiences for
Yeah,
the audiences. But how do I deploy it? I got an
yeah,
enterprise. It's hard. It's complicated. I got engineers. I want to save them time. Take me through how I deploy the hybrid Fivetran solution, and what does it look like?
yeah. Yeah, and this is something we really spent a lot of time thinking about architecting, looking at who else in the market's done a really good job on this. And there's sort of two. There's some vendors, even in our space, that say, "Hey, we will support hybrid. We will run this locally, but you're on your own. You got to do the management. You got to do the updates." And we were like, "That's not ethos of Fivetran. We want to make the management super simple." So this is how it works. So you can go into fivetran.com today, log in, get an account, and most if you already have an account, you could use that, and you could go and say, "Hey, I'm going to download an agent," and this thing works with the right security protocols. It's on gRPC, and once you install the agent, and it's you can download the agent from the control plane, and it's a very simple setup guide you could probably do that in less than an hour. And it's mostly about just internal permissions. And once that's up and running, that's it. That's you're done. We then take over, right? We architected in that a way that the local agent will scale when it needs to, will talk on when it needs to, will download the things that it needs to. And it's like, hey, you're talking to these sources, that you almost forget about it after that,
Yeah.
right? We then take over. So it's that simple. So we've kind of figured out, like, okay, what Fivetran is all about, making data movement super simple. So there are some vendors out there that you now then have to go manage it. So that kind of beats the purpose of hybrid, in our opinion.
Yep.
Your job is to go get the agent working. It scales when it needs to. It's secure, and it keeps up with all the updates, and it talks to all the sources you need to do it. Like, those are the foundational principles of this offering, if you will. So you don't need to worry about managing this thing other than the initial setup, and there, in some cases, you have to go through security review. So often we see the long pole is your internal security teams have to review it and then
Yeah.
operationalize that. So it's more of a process thing, but we can do our part very quickly, and we can, like, we've, and our goal, our team's pushing on innovation is like making that install process like as few clicks as possible.
I mean, that's going to be the key to success right there. I mean, making it easy to get it out there. But one of the things that people are talking about is AI readiness, right? So you got
Yeah.
the data processing for these workloads, AI and ML workloads. How do you guys bridge the gap between those workloads on the AI ML side and the security piece? Because that's an empowering opportunity for the
Yeah.
organizations to create that ability to do that, and then obviously move between on-prem to the cloud,
Yeah.
which you guys already have.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, this comes up a lot as I talk to customers. They are number one imperative is getting their data for Gen AI, and Gen AI, I mean, is now you can get search to be a lot more thoughtful. You can kind of build these question answer capabilities. You can build intelligent agents like you talked about, and to drive all of that, you before analytics, you can kind of go get like, hey, here's my one source of data. I can kind of run more structured data analytics, if you will. But now you have unstructured data as well. Like, you have text, you have like PDFs and so on, and there's a lot of context in that. And then these documents are also very sensitive. There might be some HR information in there, financial information in there. So now that we are able to move not only structured information and unstructured information in a secure way, that really empowers companies, we think. They can go and say, okay, like, I can go teach my agent or my analytical app or my bot what is in this document of onboarding, or in my Zendesk tickets or in my messages, and I can empower my field or my customer support or my analytics team, or even someone willing to really understand a question. And all of that comes together because you could marry your structured data about your sales with manuals and Zendesk tickets. And like that's our mission. So we're going to help you bring all of that information together so you could then go, okay, ask a question that could be, what's happening with my support tickets? What's happening with my sales information? Or, hey, a customer's asking me for this problem, tell me a solution. And the agent has to go figure out that information from a manual. But all of that information can't be siloed anymore,
Yep.
right? You need the analytics app or the AI agent to go read all that information, right? And we mostly built our analytics information on structured. The world is now moving to more unstructured, but unstructured is also very secure.
I
We've
think
not
that's
had a good security policy in unstructured.
I think that security angle is huge because, that's the number one concern on the on-prem is, hey, I got to have this is sensitive information, so I got to be secure. That's awesome. And then, if you look at hybrid cloud, that transition, right? It was in the cloud, lift and shift, and then you had cloud operations on-prem. That's hybrid cloud. It's great to see you guys bring the hybrid deployment on the data movement side because, one of the problems we're seeing in the marketplace, Dave Valentine and I were just talking about this, looking at the data, is that you're seeing growth in on-prem AI, mainly for the reasons you guys just mentioned, but also they want to get control of it. Then they go, oh, great, but we get the cloud's growing too. So it's not so much repatriation from the cloud, it's just that there's more on-prem activity for compliance and governance reasons and for intellectual property and security. Okay, great, got that. But now cloud growth is still there. So there's a challenge in the market on moving data from on-prem to the cloud. So this hybrid approach seems to fit that really, really well. Can you react to that? Is that something that you guys see as the core use case? Is that what you're targeting with this, with Fivetran? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right, John. So customers have on-prem is growing because to the point where they're getting very nervous about applications and some of the data that is sensitive. Cloud continues to explode, right? That's a thing. But you need to bring the on-prem data and the cloud data together, right? And you need to do that in a secure way. And there's a few approaches. You could go do the data processing locally. You could get your own VPC, and in some sense, like getting your own VPC is the new on-prem in the cloud, where you have 100% control, and you do all analytics in that, right? So I think it's getting control back across on-prem and cloud, and doing that you can't have now 4 different solutions. Okay, I'm going to do one thing for on-prem, I'm going to do one thing for cloud. Just having a unified control plane is the way to do it because look, there's cost pressures on the enterprise, cost pressures, and you can't have many teams. And I think you have a handful, you have one team that needs to monitor this. That's how we think this should work. And one place where you can monitor all your data movement pipelines and one place where you can keep up with updates. So we just think it could be that simple. You don't need messy data pipelines across 4 different mechanisms just because you have 4 different databases and 4 different premises.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you want to make it easy to use so you can connect the data, get the benefits of Gen AI clear. I love the hybrid approach. I think it's going to be a great solution for you guys because now you get the best of both worlds. Can you give an example of customers you guys have talked to? You don't have to share names. If you have names, that's great. Because I can see this being a great data engineering, platform engineering fit for where we see the DevOps, DevSecOps platforms right now. Because now as data becomes core, it's not just analytics, it's engineering teams. This is the DevOps world that we're living in. So what's the customer look like? What are some of the examples you can share? Feel free to elaborate.
Yeah. Powell Industries is one that's used, I can talk on record. They are they manufacture equipment for power distribution. So you can kind of think about that sensitive data. Like they're dealing with lots of sensitive data. So, and they've struggled with managing on-prem pipelines. So they love our hybrid. They've installed our hybrid. They make it easy. I was just chatting with one of our partners, PH Data, that is positioning this with their customers. And that's resonating really well in financial, healthcare, manufacturing. I mean, lots of industries is really resonating well. I was in a conversation with a very large bank recently, and it fits in this category of, hey, there's this data, we've always wanted to move it, but we couldn't because I don't have the people to do it. And they look at a hybrid and like, okay, that's it. Like, I can finally go take on that project because now it's simple to use. It's sensitive data. I don't need to go like take on risk without doing this myself. This seems to work. So like that, I think that kind of conversations are like unlocking data. You just don't have the resources to go create these custom data pipelines. I'm seeing a lot of that. So I think that I'm super excited by that.
A lot of the AI architects right now, they're all looking at resetting their platform. You mentioned you have a lot of engineers internally are working on this problem. You talk to customers. You're the chief product officer. You get the keys to the kingdom inside the company. You talk to customers. What's the impact of the customers, and how is this going to impact Fivetran? Because again, you guys got great momentum right now. Okay, cloud clearly there. What's the hybrid do for the customer's impact, and how's that impact your company?
Yeah, we think this sort of furthers our mission. We want to be the data movement platform, right? And we want to really solve that problem in a very deep, meaningful way. And we've done that. We've got great set of customers that use us every day to move lots of data, terabytes of data every day, right? Now, the challenge is how do we go help our customers go after the sensitive data? So, and I think there's a strong correlation between sensitive data and business impact. So I think this is going to have a very meaningful impact in the enterprise and even in the mid-market. And you can't really think of any industry or customers not having sensitive data. And I think where we're going to go is that second category. They have lots of data that's siloed, that's locked. And we can go and say, now you can move that data with the security guarantees you need, and you can go innovate. So I think once we get this going, I think we're going to get a lot of adoption, and we're going to get customers finally kind of giving up. I would say those give up your data pipelines. I say, like, don't worry about these custom pipelines. Go work on something better.
Yeah, the productivity gains are phenomenal, but the enablement there too for developers. I mean, I remember during the security industry, when cloud was booming, shift left, right? This is a data version of that, right? This is, you guys are setting the table to put the infrastructure in place for developers to code, and it's going to give that hybrid experience that they want, because data's got to work together, whether it's on cloud or in sensitive data. I mean, again, it's all got to interact. Generative AI is not going to rely on one model to rule the world. Several are going to need to work together. So connecting data into systems is going to be a core IO, I guess, for data, right? So again, this is architecturally feels right to me. And again, ease of use, install, sounds great. Give people a taste of the availability. You said it's going to be GA. How do they get a hold of it? Is it on the website? Give a plug for how do I find out more information?
Yeah, so and everything we do at Fivetran, it's GA. You can go on our website. You can get an account. You can get a free account if you like. And once you get that, like you can start setting up the agent for hybrid design. You can certainly talk to our sales team. You can go trial this out. Like, we have a lot of existing customers who are very excited about trial running this.
Who's the pain point person inside the companies you guys work with best? And what's their problem? What's the smoke before the fire? How do they know they need to call Fivetran?
If you have, I'm sure like a lot of your listeners will relate to this. Business is saying, I need that application. I need that Gen AI bot. And somebody in the data team is saying, well, we don't have the data for that, right? I think that's your trigger. You don't have the data for that. We don't have the data for that. So I think Fivetran can help you solve that.
You need data for AI. Doesn't work well without data. That's the key. All right, final question for you while we got you here. Explain the mission for Fivetran and what's on the roadmap. What's coming down the road? What are you working on next? What's the next act here?
Yeah, look, I think hybrid launch, we want to make sure that is very exciting. A few of the things we are doing, one of the things I'm excited about is customers kind of wanting their own storage with Iceberg and Delta so that they can go run their query engine. So we're doing a lot of work there. We've launched our managed data lake offering not too long ago. I remember talking to you a few weeks ago on that, John. So I think that's been exciting. We're continuing to innovate on that, giving customers the choice to talk to any query engine in the data format that they care about, whether that's Iceberg or Delta, and we make the updates for you. So we're rapidly improving performance there. We're rapidly providing ability to even build your own applications on top of that. So that area of innovation will continue. Unstructured data is another area we're investing in. We're trying to help customers do the final frontier of kind of moving the data, which is unstructured data. So you'll see some updates on there. You'll see some updates on building connectors better. So their customers want to go build their own stores. We're going to help you do that. And then finally, we think there's a world where customers have way more choice in how they store their data and what query engine they run. So more on that later, but that's an area we're tackling.
Well, congratulations. Right now, hybrid's a great solution. We need it. We need to move data around, get the AI fed with the right data at the right time. Having one platform is easy to use in a single way, full control to manage the sensitive data. That's the hot spot, right? And being ready for the apps. And again, on-prem to cloud, big push. Cloud's not going away. So you guys, feels right. Feels like a great solution.
Thanks, John.
Thanks so much for coming on. I'm John Furrier here on theCUBE Studios. Special news announcement with Fivetran. Thanks for watching.